Hello, Matt. Happy 420. Good to see you.
Hey, buddy. Hey, Dylan. How are you doing?
I've been doing well. I haven't seen you since the Pickle Awards. How you been? I mean, I think it's been a long while.
Yeah, it's been good. I've been here, just doing my thing.
Where is here? Are you still in that bunker that you said you were in the Pickle Awards?
Well, I am in a bunker, but it is a different bunker. People are after me, so I had to move
You
places.
have more than one bunker. Matt,
Yeah.
are, I, this may be an intrusive question, but I'm just going to ask it. Have you been smoking any of the devil's lettuce by any chance?
Why would you ask me that question? Of course not,
Well,
Dylan.
I mean, for the occasion, for the holiday 420. I don't know, man. You seem a little paranoid. Just a little
Well,
paranoid.
I mean, I think you'll find that a paranoid person is paranoid, even if there are actually people after them. Look that up in your dictionary. Thank you. But no, I'm fine. Hey, Dylan, can I talk to you privately for a second?
I mean, yeah, we're private, right? Oh, okay. Where Matt? Where'd you go?
Hey,
Matt,
hey,
your camera's
hey,
on.
Dylan. Hey, Dylan. Can you talk to
Yeah.
me privately? Thanks.
Okay. Does this work? I mean, they can still
Yes,
hear us. But...
be cool, man. I mean, this is
Okay.
being filmed right now.
Yeah. I'm cool. I'm cool.
Just be cool. Anyway, let's do the show, Framewreck.
What a story, Mark.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very special 420 episode of Framewreck. I'm going to turn the lights a little bit down to give some of that green haze right there. Tuck a little of this hair in. How you doing, Matt? Happy to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I'm doing all right. I'm excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah. So in honor of 420, we wanted to look at one of the most prolific propaganda films ever made, and that is the 1930. Help me with the year. 38.
Well, here this is part of the fun thing is that
Okay.
the year is actually in question because it was made so it's credited on pretty much everything as being 1936 movie, or sorry,
36.
1936 movie,
Okay.
but there are many people who credit it as 1938 that no one's really sure, and the reason we'll get into as we
Okay.
get
So,
on.
so welcome to our episode about the 1930s classic propaganda film Reefer Madness, which has been, of course, adapted into a more satirical, musical version. But this is the OG. This is the 30s version.
Yes.
First watch for me. I think it was a rewatch for Matt to celebrate the holiday, if you will. So if you're watching this, sit back, enjoy a nice little something, and we're gonna talk about Reefer Madness. It's gonna be a little bit more just discussion based rather than just hitting all the points and down the line, because there's just so much to talk about with this movie, and also what makes it oddly good even though it's bad, and what makes it bad because it's bad.
Right.
But anyway, Matt, take it away with your introduction to Reefer Madness.
All right, Reefer Madness. Now, again, yeah, this was 1936, or 1938. No one's really sure. A film called "Tell Your Children" was financed by a church, actually, a church group, and it was intended to show It was intended to be for parents, to show them the pitfalls of of smoking the devil's lettuce, and all the dangers that come with it. But what it turned into was a largely uninformed take on cannabis usage. Okay, so it's gone by many names. It was originally called "Tell Your Children," but then they took it on the road after they had made it. It was bought up by. It's actually been owned by several people. In fact, New Line Cinema. It was like their first movie, the first movie that they ever took out, or that they produced, or not produced, but showed. It was called "Tell Your Children." It was also called, that was when they were in that was where it was screened in the South. When it was screened in Colorado, it was called Doped Youth. In New England, it was known as Reefer Madness, which is what we know it as today. And then in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, it was called The Burning Question.
We're going to get into it, but when you talk about, what is intentional versus unintentional,
right.
What is taken legitimately but made satire versus what is intended to be satire, like we look at the Reefer Madness musical, that is meant to be a satire. You look at this, though, it is very much taken seriously. I think that's some of the merit of this, is that it's taken seriously, but over time we've made it into a satirical thing.
Right.
because it's as ridiculous as it is, and I just think the title is great. I almost wish there was an exclamation point after that, like
Yeah.
"Reefer Madness," just commit to the bit,
Right, but that would imply that they knew what they were doing, and
Well, and that's what's so funny is that they thought this was
yes.
100% serious. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And not everybody who when they were showing it around, it was purchased by like exploitation companies who were doing this because they knew what people wanted to see. Like that was originally they knew, those people, distributors basically knew what was going on, but people who made it, no, they were 100% serious. And if you call it Reefer Madness with an exclamation point, I think you do betray the nature of the film itself, despite it being more accurate to the content. The film was actually like the reason this church group, which I couldn't find the name of the church group anywhere. I'm sure it's somewhere. I didn't go that deep, but it was inspired by, they did this because there was a teenager named Victor Licata. And it's mentioned briefly in the movie. Like he says, you know about this teenager, this 16-year-old who under the influence of marijuana cut up his whole family with an axe. That was actually a true story. This kid killed his father, mother, two brothers, and his sister with an axe in Tampa, Florida in 1933. And they blamed it on marijuana use. They said it was because he was under the influence of marijuana, but he was actually schizophrenic and put away because he was basically deemed unfit to stand trial. So like he had so basically it wasn't the marijuana, but
it kind of acts as a scapegoat in a way,
a good righteous mob never lets facts get in the way of their mob, or their righteousness. Right. It's so that was the original story, and then what we get is this movie.
If you have not seen Reefer Madness, like we're gonna kind of spoil some stuff. What it basically is it's a series. It starts as this like almost like this lecture you would see at any like high school auditorium where the principal's giving a talk to these parents about the dangers of marijuana, and they quite literally open with a scroll, saying, this movie is meant to shock you, meant to scare you, and if it doesn't, we've failed at our job, all this stuff. So they say from the beginning that it is 100% propaganda, and they do not shy away from that.
Oh yeah.
And then the series, it begins to unfold into a series of events about these kids taking marijuana and seeing how that affects their daily life, except some instances that happen in their daily life are super heightened to the point where people are getting just hit by cars out of nowhere and shot out of nowhere and going on trial for this. And it was basically used, as a propaganda piece to scare people, and especially parents, away from giving marijuana to their kids or letting their kids consume marijuana, or kids themselves. Obviously, everyone else has their own different opinion on different drugs and different consuming of different drugs and stuff, but like marijuana is very much more tame and much less dangerous than a lot of other drugs that are mentioned in severity. So like, this is not to knock all drugs. I just want to put that blanket statement out there. Like, don't do drugs, kids. But like, when we're talking about marijuana, I think it's a similar conversation to if you're talking about alcohol or even caffeine. Like people drink coffee and soda to give them that hyper adrenaline boost. Like that is a drug. And I think it's interesting to see, just as time passes, our attitudes towards certain drugs and certain things. So that's a basic blanket what Reefer Madness is, just for anyone watching, and just to get a sense of, this is the 30s. So like back then, marijuana was this taboo thing.
Right. And here's the thing about this movie. It's only an hour long. It's an hour long, and it's a quick watch, and there are parts that are just like, oh God, that are a slog, but you don't go more than a few minutes without something that's just absolutely over the top.
Right.
So it is fun to watch.
Yeah, and part of that is that the effects of the drugs themselves, they try to make very clear. And one of the things they say is, it starts just uproarious laughter and contagious laughter or whatever. Like people just burst out into laughter. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, is that a bad thing? Right. Like, is bursting out into laughter and having fun like a bad thing? And I think that's the joke that Reefer Madness kind of is not in on, that everyone else is that like a lot of the times what you're seeing is like really fun social life, really fun, happenstance. there are some very bad things that happen also that they're trying to scare you out of. But it's like,
Right.
you know, I don't mind sitting back and laughing and looking
Right.
kind of ridiculous. You know, like that's part of the fun. You know.
Right. Well, and what's funny is 15. I think 15 minutes into the movie is the first time someone uh
Partakes.
the first time you see someone, and it's I believe it's Ralph goes
Mhm.
goes into the other room, lights it up, and smokes the way no human person has ever smoked anything
Yes.
ever in their life. Oh yes, so he with both hands goes. So that's where we get our first bit of smoking pot, which Ralph, I guess they didn't really make this clear, but I don't think narrative structure was their chief concern. They don't really make clear exactly what's going on, but I think Ralph lives with Jack and whatever the woman's name was. I don't know. We see that woman get dressed for far too long. They set on that woman for like a full 2 minutes as she's pulling up her stockings and adjusting her waist for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, it's not like we're getting a full costume change either. It's not like that beautiful scene in West Side Story where like Maria's getting ready in the morning. No, it's literally just stockings and wait. Like it's one element to a whole outfit
for no purpose. It's Ralph, I guess, lives with Jack and I forget her name, the little lady, and they are drug dealers, I suppose. But here's the problem, and here's the thing that I say the thing. One of the things that just that doesn't make any sense, which is that they invite people over to their house to smoke weed. Mm-hmm. Their chief concern seems to be to get people to smoke it, but not to get anybody to buy it, because they basically just have people over to smoke it and then come back over and the next time to smoke and then have people come. These are the worst drug dealers in the world. Yeah, give them the first taste for free. After that, you're going to have to start paying me for it. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be their job here.
Yeah, it's like the guy at the ice cream place who's so nice, and it's like, can I try that flavor? Yeah, sure. Can I try this one? And then by that time, you've had a taste of every single one of the flavors, but because you've had 26 tastes, it's equal to a whole small ice cream. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's very much that. It's like, yeah, no, sure, yeah, come smoke my stuff again and again and again.
Yeah, so they're the worst. They're the worst drug dealers. She has a problem with going after teens, but this guy, no, he knows that's where you're going to get the. That's where you're going to get the actions.
We got to also tie in the fact that, you know, if this is propaganda and this is meant to scare people away from weed, saying, hey, this guy's giving everyone free weed, it's not the most, how should I say this? It's not the most effective way to get people to stop. It's like if you have all these commercials trying to get kids to stop eating candy because it's bad for their teeth, but then you see all these kids go into the candy store and it's like, oh, free lollipops every morning at 9 a.m. It's like, if you keep seeing free stuff, I think that's a better advertisement for it than it is a better advertisement not to. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing as I'm watching it. I'm like, if they had shown me the financial devastation that they might be going through smoking this much weed, like that would have been a real good deterrent. But right now, it kind of seems like if I look hard enough, I'll find the guy who's just going to give me weed. And there's another woman who lives there. Also, it's all very unclear.
And I gotta say, you're bringing up these characters' names and stuff, and obviously this is my first watch, and maybe it'll make more sense rewatching or watching the musical or something. But all these characters seem a little too generic to where like I could not name Paul, Dick, and Harry apart from one another. You know what I mean? Like they're all kind of just this very generic brand of teenager.
Jack, Ralph, and then Jimmy are like the three distinct characters, and then everyone else is vaguely person who has a role in it.
Yeah, you have a Mary and a May as two of your main. It's like you substitute one letter. You have the missed opportunity of naming them Mary and Jane. I thought that was going to be a joke. Like he's in love with Mary, he's in love with Jane, and that was like going to be a clever parallel. But obviously, we're much smarter than this movie.
Right.
So they're obviously not going to think of like the little nuances like that.
Again, that touch would have betrayed its nature, which is that yes, that would have been funnier, but then that would have been less funny now because then they would have been sort of in on it. We get this horrible den of sin, which is very clean and clearly was somebody's house, like just somebody who's on production's house.
Probably one of the church people, you know.
Yeah,
You can use my house. Just
you can use my house. No,
clean
you
up.
cannot.
Take your shoes off the door.
Take your shoes off the door. No, you may not. Make it look like a drug dealer's den. This is where Jimmy first starts. He forgets his first taste of marijuana, and then everything starts to go to hell for him. The main kid, he's a very promising young lad. They go over to Mary, maybe her house, and have hot chocolate and to study, and are very romantic about Romeo and Juliet, which is referenced in the musical, which I highly recommend. The musical, if you haven't seen that, right?
I have not.
I highly recommend it. It's very funny because it's made with the exact same enthusiasm.
But with the intention of being a satire,
with a very different intention. Yes, okay. There's a whole song about how they haven't finished reading Romeo and Juliet, but they're sure that they get married and have babies, and they're going to be just like Romeo and Juliet.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it's a story that they are currently studying that they haven't finished that he can just recite off book, which is fun.
As a theater kid in high school, some people were like that, myself included. Sometimes, I just get carried away and memorize shit. Yeah, I was that annoying theater kid, so like that part I can kind of get with, maybe.
He starts going to the den, and then he gets his friend to start going to the den, which had one of my favorite lines, which is he has his friend. You want to go get a soda, and his friend says, "I never touch the stuff, but you can buy me a root beer." Like, I don't know, maybe back then soda, like root beer wasn't just considered a soda.
Cola. Yeah, soda was just cola, maybe. I don't know. Or soda was like soda water. I really don't know.
The purpose of it is to make him seem wholesome, I think, like to say he doesn't even drink soda. It reminds me of, and this is a memory that's just now coming back to me, grade school. I used to write plays all the time. I would give them to my friends, and then we would practice them during recess. And then I would go up to the teacher after recess and I'd say, "I wrote a play. Can I perform it for the class? Will you perform it for the class?" One time I did one about smoking, just like smoking cigarettes. So I get up there, and I don't remember every part of it. But I do know that it started out with just a regular Jimmy type kid. Another kid comes up and is like, "Hey, you want to try this cigarette?" And he's like, "No, I don't touch that stuff." But then he convinces him, and then he smokes. And then I don't remember all that happens in this little play. I'm sure it was very short. The ending of the play was that I had, due to my smoking, been confined to a wheelchair and could never walk again.
You've made a more impactful Reefer Madness than Reefer Madness.
Well, the thing is, I made a Reefer Madness because there's no science about what I said. I did not actually say anything that was. But
I'm sure you scared some naive people into thinking it was.
I'm sure I did something like that. But that's kind of how this movie feels to me. Is that like someone was like, "Well, we have to tell them what's wrong, and do research." No, we're going to tell them some horrifying things. Right. And say that it's because of this. That's how this feels. And then Bill has to give Jack, is it Jack, right, a ride after smoking, drives real fast into a person, over a person. Right. Oh, like the camera work on that in that scene, because first he's like walking, steps out into the street, just head straight up in the air, gets hit by the car, and definitely gets run over because he is directly in front of that car. Somehow he lives, we find out later in the film. Eventually, Jimmy is seduced by the other woman who lives in the house. She is offered a joint that she thinks is a cigarette, gets high, and then Ralph tries to do bad things to her.
Yeah.
Jimmy walks out, sees this. I guess he hallucinates because in this movie, that's what marijuana does to you. It makes you hallucinate a lot. He hallucinates that she willingly removed her dress or whatever. He gets into a fight with her. Jack comes out of the gun with a gun. The gun goes off and kills her. The clearly dead woman's laying there. Ralph comes out and says, "Jack, is she all right?" As though she hadn't just been shot in the back. And Jack touches her and says, "No, she's dead."
And I also love how these effects of marijuana just trigger immediately. Like, because as you know, as most people know, it takes a little while to get going. You know, sometimes maybe not, but like especially for your first time, like maybe it takes a few tries to get it, and it's like it's very funny to see just like immediately the effects, and then everyone's going crazy, and then someone's dead within a minute. Like it really is crazy, and it shows just how much research they didn't do, or what research they were doing was clearly propaganda itself, because what is being depicted is not reality at all.
Right. And then this movie takes a turn. It becomes a courtroom drama. Jack convinces him that he has killed his girlfriend because he knocks him out, puts a gun in his hand, convinces him that he shot his girlfriend. He is tried and convicted and deemed criminally insane from smoking too much marijuana. Batman's greatest villain, Reefer Man, apparently, the criminally insane Jimmy, is from smoking too much reefer. So they have to, at that point, convince Bill to not testify, I guess. Is that what the situation was? They convinced him not to testify by saying, "Oh no, you killed that man you drove over with your car. I won't tell anybody, just as long as you don't say anything about what happened, here with the thing." Okay, I'll just say right now, my favorite line of dialogue, my favorite bad line of dialogue in this movie is when they're talking about having to keep Ralph in the house. Jack says, "All you have to do is keep from having too many reefers." Reefers, as though that is because reefer is reference to marijuana, not specifically. It's not the noun to describe the marijuana cigarette. That line made me laugh. I rewound it like 3 times.
And it's another example of like just not knowing the research, not knowing even how to refer to certain things, because it's just they're so out of the loop, but they want to make a commentary on it, so they want to like act like these characters are in the loop, but because they're not in the loop, they can't write accurately historically to what the actual culture of weed culture in the 30s was like, because none of us have experienced it, but I assume it's similar in terms of just the general hangoutness of it.
Right. They showed the evils of marijuana. They showed us what happens if you smoke too many reefers, and then they got to this point where they're like, but we need to make it a movie. There has to be a conclusion. It's very rushed, this whole ending, which is fine. This movie's a disaster. It's not like a better ending would have saved this movie. But anyway, so they have to keep Ralph in the house, but then the woman decides that she's not going to sit by and let this kid go to jail for that. Goes and confesses, tells the police what happened. I believe Ralph kills Jack, although it's kind of unclear. He definitely is violent toward him at the end. He may kill him. She goes out, tells him what happened, and apparently, and this is probably an effect of the reefers, can't live with herself and jumps directly out of a window.
Yeah, the window, because at this point in the movie, I'm like, it's getting past the point of like, oh my god, this is so ridiculous, I'm laughing at it, to like, okay, like what's the point? Why am I okay? I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting tiresome, and then that swan dive out the window happens, and I'm like, wow, like as if I had seen it all.
Right. Well, and the fun thing at this point is Jack's probably dead. The woman is dead because she's jumped out the window. Ralph, I believe, is going to go to jail now, although I don't remember if it's clear what happens with that. But Bill, who actually ran over a human person, nothing ever happens to that guy. He's fine.
He gets
he's fine. All he had to do was keep his mouth shut, and he's good. I think that's the true lesson of Reefer Madness here.
And it ends with the very famous, tell your children, you kind of break the fourth wall. It's the Judi Dench in Cats moment. It takes to the camera and it points at the audience and says, this is what we want you to take away from it, as if our opening scroll of 2 minutes in the beginning didn't make it clear enough. Like, weed is bad for you, tell your children. Very, I hadn't seen a lot of propaganda films, but like, this is exactly what I imagined every single one to be. Like, get the point across. And usually, if it's a good propaganda film, get it across really well to where the audience is actually fearful or scared. And that's why some great satires are great, because they really do, effectively commentate on what they want to be, telling, the beliefs they are trying to preach. Some do it almost so overtly that it becomes a little tiresome. But here it's like, yeah, you get what their intention is, but they're going about it in all the wrong ways.
Right.
And it just becomes kind of a laughing stock at the end. And that brings us to the question of, is this a so good it's bad movie, or is it just a bad movie?
Well, and I kind of showed my hand on that a little bit earlier, which is that there are parts of this that are just a slog, and there's parts of this that are annoying, and it's like, okay, like, this is not entertaining. It's just kind of preachy, and the preachiness isn't necessarily entertaining right now, but it doesn't take long for it to get to a bit where that just has me laughing. Like, any time they're actually doing drugs is hilarious, because no one knows how to do it. It's all exaggerated reactions to it. No one who's ever actually done marijuana would ever do the things that they do in this. I mean, except for like the laughter.
And as far as I know, I've never met anyone who's jumping out a window solely because they were high. I don't even know if I've met anyone who's ever jumped out a window.
Not high on marijuana. I have heard of people high on other things who have jumped out of things, but high on marijuana, no. That's
It's definitely not an educational piece by any means, and I think it's almost been embraced by like stoner communities, because they kind of like. They can laugh at it because it's so ridiculous. It's almost like people are mocking them, and they get a kick out of it. It's almost like, bring it on, keep throwing it at us. Like,
people like to get high and go see it at a midnight showing, or get high and watch it with a group of their friends. It has become one of those movies, and to me, yes, it's about as good. So for me, and I'll give you my ranking right now. For me, I give it 3 reefers out of 5.
Okay. And well, to stay in the spirit of the holiday, I will give it 420 root beers out of 500 Cokes.
Oh, dang.
So you gave away your line of dialogue. I'll give away mine now too. There was only one that like just really jumped out at me, like that I was like, what? And it's when whoever Jimmy's person is, Jimmy is doing something that is pleasing everyone, entertaining everyone. She goes, "Oh, Jimmy, you're wonderful," and he responds, "You're just finding that out." Like, I think that's one of the most self-centered things to say. Like, if someone's like, "Wow, you're so awesome," like, "You're great," and they just respond with, "You're just finding that out now." It's like,
Jimmy was not like better before the weed. Like, there's like the weird self-centeredness of that. There's also when we first meet him, his little story about how, and then I told my mom that her pot roast gravy is bad because she doesn't put 3 tablespoons of olive oil in it. That's Jimmy
sucks.
Jimmy sucked. Jimmy was improved by marijuana up until the getting accused of murder bit. As far as best actor, do you even have one? Because I have one.
I don't. I really think, like I said, these characters are still like not unique enough on their own to where I can say like definitively that any of them are like really anything extraordinary. I think they're all kind of like cast for a similar reason, and that's that they aren't compelling personalities, because you don't want to get attached to them, because the purpose of the movie is to make you like kind of see how horrible they can change this so put together personality. So I didn't really have a standout. Who was your standout, Matt?
But for me, and this is only because he felt like the only person that I could see in another movie, and he actually did have a pretty reasonable career, and that is Carlton Young, who played as Jack. He played Jack.
Mhm.
He felt like he was an actor. Like he felt like he was like he knew what he was doing. Like he actually seemed like a good actor, and he was the one that I felt elevated the material.
Yeah.
Versus
Who was your
everyone
worst?
else.
Who was your worst actor?
My worst was also my favorite, and that's the interesting thing, and that was Dave O'Brien as Ralph.
Yeah,
He was
that was mine as well.
he was my favorite part of the movie. He made me laugh every time. He wasn't supposed to, I don't think, and that was the problem. But
Right.
just he went so big when he was getting high, when he was smoking.
Right.
It was magical.
Worst overall performer in terms of like in front of or behind the camera, gotta go to Carl Pearson, the editor, because what some of this editing, and there are some shots where it'll just go, it'll be like 6 shots in the span of a second on the same person, but in like 6 different points of view, but not totally opposing points of view. It's all like kind of the same angle of the person, just 6 different times. It was very weird. Unless they were making a commentary on the caffeine of the root beer, you know what I mean? But like it was just too jittery. Anyway, the editing in this I think is atrocious. So I just wanted to shout that out as my worst performer.
Editing is bad. We were talking about Legacy, and I kind of went over that as well. It's considered a cult classic. It was one of the first midnight movies ever. There was a stage adaptation that ran in Chicago in 1992. And then there was a 1998 musical that was later turned into the TV film Reefer Madness in 2005 with Alan
Very
Cumming.
Interested to see that.
Kristen
Yeah,
Bell.
yeah.
You should. It's very funny, and I really it's again when you see it you'll understand, but it's made with the same energy. So everyone is over the top. Even the things that aren't in the other film do have the spirit of the film because they are way over the top. They don't necessarily make sense to what the drug that's being consumed on screen. It's very funny, and I highly recommend it. There's also a colorized version of this movie, which has like pink smoke, like really bright pink smoke when they're exhaling and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And it's a favorite under the influence version. I will
Interesting.
say.
I'm really glad it got picked up as a cult
Right.
classic because I think it's something worth seeing because especially with weed being more accepted now more than ever, you know, it's being legalized all over the place. It's, you know, it's not a criminal offense to possess it anymore. You know, it's really society's changed so much that I think this is a really good time capsule of seeing a society, a way a society views this certain taboo, you know, in a way, you know, from a certain very specific time period.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's in the public domain now, so that's why last time when I was like, hey, if you want to watch this, it's everywhere, and that it is like it pretty much it's on YouTube. Like you could just watch it from YouTube, but it's also on like Paramount Plus and stuff like that, and yes, I'm glad that it has, because like you said, weed is not what it used to be. It's not seen as like it used to be. We know that the health benefits are much greater than any health issues detriments that they have. It's much safer than things that are very legal, like alcohol.
Yeah, you can't overdose on weed. You can't
overdose on weed, despite what this movie tells you.
Despite this movie telling you that if you smoke weed, you will swan dive out of a window, knock a person over by your car, or shoot your girlfriend by accident.
The Framewreck moment of the train wreck moment of the week. It's jumping out the window for me. Like
it's the swan dive.
It's a swan dive. It's so good.
So next, what we do is we look at our Mount Trashmore, which is our Mount Rushmore of bad movies. But these are not just bad movies; these are movies that are so bad they're good. And right now, we have 4 movies up there. We have The Room, we have Birdemic, Star Wars Holiday Special, and then we also have Batman and Robin, which just knocked off Face Off last month. So now the question becomes, does Reefer Madness take a spot among the 4 worst or 4 best of the worst films ever made? My vote, I kind of tipped my hand earlier. I don't personally love this one. I think it's more boring than it is entertaining to me. There are really entertaining, crazy bits, but I think if I'm going to go back and watch one of these bad movies to get sheer entertainment and laugh my ass off, I think the other 4 that are up there, I think just take the cake more for me personally. But Matt, I'd like you to weigh in because you can definitely sway me if you want to talk it out.
I don't think I'm going to try to sway you. I will say that I would personally put it on there just based on the ranking. I know both the Christmas special and Batman and Robin we gave relatively low scores to because they were actually kind of entertaining at parts.
Like competently made at times.
there were parts that were actually competently made. So based on that alone, I want to put it up there. However, you make a good point. Like I would go back to those movies first for their badness before I go to this for its badness. As much as I want to see a picture of Ralph smoking a marijuana cigarette like a lunatic on Mount Trashmore, I am going to have to say that it's probably this is going to be our first time. This is going to be our first time a movie does not make it on the mountain. Yeah, at all.
Well, here I'll tell you this: just in the spirit of 420 and giving Ralph his moment, let's put him on the side of Mount Trashmore on the bottom, smoking, looking up at Mount Trashmore, like he's visiting, he's passing by, smoking a joint, watching the Mount Trashmore that is already up there. How about that?
That works.
Perfect. So Ralph is there enjoying the scenic view, even though he is not up on the mountain itself. He's hoping to get his face carved in someday. He will not. But that is Reefer Madness.
That is Reefer Madness.
So next month on my channel in May, I'm going to be doing a retrospective. I did it last May or last June or whatever. I did it the year before on my Letterboxd. I look at movies from 10 years ago because those are movies, some of them I saw in theaters, some of them I was not old enough yet to see in theaters, some of them I hold very fondly. I know I was just, well, actually 2012, I was like 14, so I could see pretty much anything. But like,
you didn't help anything with that.
I did 2010 in 2020. I did 2011 last year in 2021. It's 2022, which means I'm going to be looking at the movies from 10 years ago, from 2012. And part of that, we wanted to kind of tie in all the shows to that. So Picture This will be a 2012 Best Picture show. For Marvelous Movie Mondays, we're going to try to talk about The Avengers because that came out in 2012. Framewreck, we have a little special treat for you. We were trying to think of movies that came out in 2012 that are regarded as either bad or so bad they're good, or just something that's piqued our curiosity that maybe we haven't seen. I know Matt and I haven't seen this film. Some others may not have seen it. It might have slipped under the radar. But Matt, why don't you tell everyone what our 2012 retrospective, 10 years later film for Framewreck will be?
Okay, so as Dylan said, we actually neither of us have seen this movie, and that's going to be the experiment here and that's always been part of our goal, was not just to watch movies movies that I love that are bad, but also like see if we can find movies that are bad, or watch a movie and then decide if it's good, or like if it's so bad it's good, or if it's just bad, or what it is. And if I'm picking them, they're just going to be so bad they're good most of the time. However, if we pick one that neither of us have seen, then we actually have a discussion on our hands regarding that for the first time together. So 2012 movie, the only 2012 movie I could think of that really fell into that territory that neither of us had seen was Battleship.
That's right, the Rihanna classic. That's the only thing I know about the movie is that Rihanna is in it. It was one of her starring roles, but a Hasbro property. The Transformers films have not had the best luck with that. And we're getting a Barbie film by Greta Gerwig, so that might be the polar opposite end. We'll see where Battleship falls into that. I'm very excited. We have some movies based on video games on the back burner. And this will be a film based on a toy brand, which is going to be an interesting thing to explore. So next month will be Battleship. Maybe it'll be really good or really bad, and not so bad it's good, and we'll just be able to like have a quick conversation and then maybe play around a Battleship on air, so you guys can sit and watch us do that while you're completely bored watching us play Battleship. I'm just kidding. We will not do that. We will do it off screen. But yeah, Matt, where can they find you? Thank you for this amazing discussion, and happy 420. Where can they find you?
You can find me on the interwebs pretty much everywhere at MattmanXIII. That is 13 in Roman numerals. Letterboxd and Twitter. On Letterboxd, I log everything that I watch, and I make lists of things that I've watched throughout the year. So you could just kind of stalk me to see what I'm doing right now. I just went through a bunch of MCU movies for reasons that will become evident next month.
Yeah, that's right. Another special announcement, which I can announce now. Last month, I played Zach in what was a crazy upset because I happened to win that match, but Matt was going to shout out the loser, and he was planning on shouting out me, but because I won, he shouted out Zach. So 2 of the co-hosts from the Dyl Pickle Movie Network will be going head-to-head in Marvel trivia. Zach is 0-2, but searching for his first win. Matt is 0-0, and we don't know how good his movie Marvel trivia is, so it'll be fun to see him compete against Zach next month for that. Otherwise, next week you can see more Marvel matches from some rookies, but next month Matt will be competing against Zach. That'll be very, very interesting. You can find me at Letterboxd and Twitter, Dylan_Randazzo, and you can find me at the Dyl Pickle Movie Network, which is where you're watching us now. And I do have plans to potentially put this on podcast version at some point, so you can take us on the go. It is in the works. I know it's been a while since it's been in the works, but we are trying to get that finalized by hopefully the summer at some point. But yeah, this has always been fun. Happy 420 to all who celebrate, and to those who do not and look down upon us, may I recommend you Reefer Madness? Maybe that'll change your mind. Maybe that'll enforce your opinion more. Who knows? Either way, celebrate your holidays safely, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
What a story, Mark.